The bullet shattered the conference room window 3 inches from Victoria Hayes's head, sending glass cascading across the mahogany table like deadly confetti. But before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Lukas Chen didn't hesitate. His body moved before his mind could process the threat, years of combat training overriding everything else. In one fluid motion, he tackled the tech billionaire to the ground, his broad frame shielding her from the chaos erupting around them. The briefcase she'd been clutching flew across the room, its contents spilling across the marble floor in a scatter of classified documents that would later change everything. The assignment had seemed routine when Lukas first received the call. Webb, his former commanding officer turned private security contractor, had pitched it as easy money. A 3-week protection detail for Victoria Hayes, CEO of Quantum Dynamics, one of Silicon Valley's most powerful defense contractors. The threat assessment suggested corporate espionage, maybe some disgruntled shareholders making noise. Nothing a decorated Army Ranger couldn't handle while still making it home for his son's bedtime stories. Lukas had been skeptical from the start, not about his abilities, but about leaving 8-year-old Tyler with his neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez for extended periods. Single fatherhood had taught him that every decision carried weight beyond his own survival. Tyler had already lost his mother to cancer 2 years ago, and Lukas refused to put his son through the anxiety of wondering if his father would come home each night. But the money Marcus offered was substantial, enough to finally get Tyler into the private school with the exceptional art program he'd been dreaming about. The kid had inherited his mother's talent for drawing, and Lukas would move mountains to nurture that gift. Victoria Hayes was nothing like Lukas expected. The media portrayed tech CEOs as either awkward introverts or ruthless megalomaniacs, but Victoria defied both stereotypes. When they first met in the sterile lobby of Quantum Dynamics headquarters, she greeted him with a firm handshake and direct eye contact that reminded him of the best officers he'd served under. Professional, confident, but without the arrogance that wealth often bred. She was younger than he'd anticipated, probably mid-30s, with auburn hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and intelligent green eyes that seemed to catalog everything around her. During their initial security briefing, Victoria had been forthcoming about the threats against her company. Quantum Dynamics specialized in cybersecurity solutions for government contracts, and their latest project had apparently ruffled some dangerous feathers. She mentioned concerns about foreign interference and corporate sabotage, speaking with the measured tone of someone accustomed to handling sensitive information. What she didn't mention, what Lukas would discover only when those documents scattered across the conference room floor, was that her briefcase contained prototype specifications for a revolutionary quantum encryption system that could render every existing cybersecurity protocol obsolete overnight. The technology was beyond anything currently available, capable of creating unbreakable communication networks that could shift the global balance of power. In the right hands, it would protect democratic institutions and civilian infrastructure. In the wrong hands, it could enable authoritarian regimes to coordinate attacks while remaining completely invisible to intelligence agencies. Victoria had been walking around with the digital equivalent of nuclear launch codes, and someone was willing to kill for them. The first week of the assignment passed without incident. Lukas established security protocols for Victoria's daily routine, coordinating with her existing team while maintaining the low profile she preferred. She was surprisingly accommodating about the restrictions his protection required, never complaining when he insisted on route changes or additional screening procedures. During quiet moments between meetings, they developed an easy professional rapport. Preparing and narrating the story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Victoria showed genuine interest when Lukas mentioned Tyler, even suggesting that his son might enjoy visiting the company's innovation lab where they demonstrated holographic displays and virtual reality systems. Those conversations revealed glimpses of the woman behind the corporate facade. Victoria had grown up in foster care, bouncing between homes until she aged out of the system at 18. Her drive to succeed stemmed not from privilege, but from a deep understanding of powerlessness and a determination never to experience it again. Building quantum dynamics from a garage startup to a billion-dollar company had been her way of creating the security she'd never known as a child. It was a story that resonated with Lukas, who understood the weight of protecting what mattered most. The attack changed everything. As sirens wailed outside and security teams swarmed the building, Lukas helped Victoria to her feet, his eyes already assessing escape routes and potential secondary threats. Glass crunched under their shoes as they moved away from the shattered window, but Victoria's attention was focused entirely on the scattered documents. Her face had gone pale, not from the near-death experience, but from the realization that her most guarded secret was now exposed. Lukas followed her gaze to the papers spread across the floor, catching glimpses of technical specifications and government classifications that made his blood run cold. In that moment, both of their worlds shifted irrevocably. This wasn't corporate espionage or shareholder disputes. Someone wanted Victoria dead to prevent that technology from reaching its intended destination, and Lukas realized he was now protecting more than just one woman's life. He was safeguarding a secret that could determine the outcome of conflicts he couldn't yet imagine, while knowing that his son was waiting at home for a father who might not return from what had suddenly become the most dangerous assignment of his military career. The safe house Marcus had arranged was a modest two-story home in Palo Alto, deliberately unremarkable among the neighborhood's tech worker residences. Lukas conducted his security sweep methodically, checking sightlines from neighboring windows and testing the reinforced door frames while Victoria sat at the kitchen table, staring at her laptop screen with an intensity that made him wonder what she was seeing there. The quantum encryption files had been secured, but the weight of their contents seemed to press down on both of them like a physical force. 3 days after the attack, Lukas found himself studying Victoria's routine with professional interest that was gradually becoming something more personal. She worked 18-hour days even under protection, reviewing code sequences and technical specifications that looked like abstract art to his untrained eye. But between the complex algorithms and corporate communications, she'd pause to ask about Tyler's school progress or remember details from their earlier conversations that most people would have forgotten. When Lukas mentioned his son's latest drawing of a dragon-breathing rainbow fire, Victoria smiled with genuine warmth and asked if Tyler might like to video chat with her sometime to show off his artwork. The gesture surprised him. Most high-profile clients treated their protection detail like expensive furniture, necessary but largely invisible. Victoria seemed to understand that behind his professional competence was a father worried about being away from home, a man trying to balance duty with the needs of an 8-year-old who'd already experienced too much loss. When she suggested they establish a routine where Lukas could call Tyler every evening at 7, regardless of whatever meetings or security protocols might interfere, he realized she was protecting something precious to him in return. Those nightly phone calls became the highlight of Lukas's day. Tyler would chatter excitedly about his art class projects, his friendship with Maria Santos, whose mother had recently started watching him after school, and his growing collection of comic books that Mrs. Rodriguez helped him organize. The boy never complained about his father's absence, displaying the resilience that both impressed and worried Lukas. Children shouldn't have to be that adaptable, that understanding of adult responsibilities that pulled their parents away. But Tyler's cheerful updates and enthusiastic descriptions of his daily adventures provided the emotional anchor Lukas needed to maintain focus on protecting Victoria. During one of these calls, Tyler mentioned that he'd drawn a picture of his dad as a superhero, complete with cape and mask. When Lukas laughingly protested that real soldiers didn't wear capes, Tyler replied with 8-year-old logic that superheroes protected people, just like his daddy did, so obviously his daddy was a superhero too. Victoria, who'd been working quietly nearby, looked up from her laptop and mouthed the word, "Absolutely," with such conviction that Lukas felt something shift in his chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with professional duty. The breakthrough in Victoria's research came during their second week at the safe house. She'd been struggling with an encryption sequence that refused to stabilize, spending sleepless nights running simulations that consistently failed at the same integration point. Lukas had learned to recognize her frustrated sighs and the way she'd push back from her laptop when another attempt collapsed. He wasn't qualified to offer technical assistance, but he could provide coffee and quiet companionship during her late-night work sessions. On Tuesday evening, as rain drummed against the safe house windows, Victoria suddenly straightened in her chair and began typing with rapid precision. The code she'd been fighting for days had finally aligned, creating a stable encryption matrix that exceeded her most optimistic projections. The breakthrough was significant enough to accelerate her timeline by months, bringing the quantum system closer to practical implementation. She turned to Lukas with excitement blazing in her green eyes. Explaining in technical terms, he didn't fully understand that she'd essentially created an unbreakable digital lock that could protect everything from financial transactions to military communications. Her enthusiasm was infectious. Lukas found himself genuinely celebrating her success. Not because it brought their assignment closer to completion, but because he'd witnessed the dedication and intelligence that made the achievement possible. Victoria was brilliant in ways that commanded his respect. But more than that, she was driven by a desire to build something meaningful, to contribute positively to a world that hadn't always been kind to her. When she impulsively hugged him in celebration, the brief contact carried an electric charge that had nothing to do with quantum physics and everything to do with the connection growing between them. The next morning brought Marcus Webb's visit. Ostensibly a routine security briefing, but clearly an opportunity for his former commanding officer to assess the situation personally. Marcus was a careful man who'd built his private security company on attention to detail and uncompromising standards. He'd handpicked Lukas for this assignment because he trusted his judgment and combat experience, but also because he knew Lukas needed the financial stability that high-profile protection work provided. During their private conversation on the safe house's back patio, Marcus observed that Victoria seemed more relaxed than her psychological profile had suggested, more willing to engage socially than someone of her position typically displayed with security personnel. His comments were professionally neutral, but Lukas detected an undercurrent of concern about appropriate boundaries between protector and client. The warning was subtle but unmistakable. Personal involvement could compromise judgment, create vulnerabilities that determined enemies might exploit. Marcus's concerns weren't entirely unfounded. Lukas had noticed his own professional detachment eroding, replaced by genuine care that extended beyond contractual obligation. When Victoria worked too late without eating, he found himself preparing meals and insisting she take breaks. When she seemed stressed about project deadlines, he suggested brief walks around the neighborhood's secure perimeter, conversations that helped her process complex problems while maintaining necessary vigilance. These weren't behaviors he'd displayed with previous clients, and their increasing frequency suggested emotional investment that could complicate his protective responsibilities. Victoria seemed equally affected by their growing connection. She'd begun including him in her daily routines not because security protocols required it, but because she valued his company. During breakfast, she'd share articles she'd read overnight, or ask for his perspective on geopolitical developments that might affect her company's government contracts. Her questions weren't small talk but genuine interest in his opinions, treating him as an intellectual equal despite their vastly different educational backgrounds. The most significant moment came when Victoria asked about Elena, Tyler's mother. Lukas rarely discussed his late wife with anyone, finding that most people either offered hollow condolences or pressed for details that felt invasive. But Victoria's question came after she'd noticed him looking at a photo on his phone, and her tone carried genuine curiosity rather than morbid fascination. She wanted to understand the woman who'd shaped Tyler into such a remarkable child, the loss that had transformed Lukas from career soldier to single father. Talking about Elena felt natural with Victoria, perhaps because she understood profound loss from her own childhood experiences. Lukas found himself describing Elena's laugh, her determination to find beauty in difficult circumstances, her ability to make their small apartment feel like a palace through creativity and love. Victoria listened without interrupting, asking thoughtful questions that demonstrated her attention to both spoken words and emotional subtext. When he mentioned Elena's final months, how she'd made him promise to prioritize Tyler's happiness over his own career ambitions, Victoria's eyes filled with tears she didn't try to hide. The conversation created an intimacy that transcended their professional relationship. Victoria shared her own struggles with trust and vulnerability, how building quantum dynamics had been partially motivated by a need to prove herself worthy of respect and affection. Success had brought financial security, but hadn't eliminated the fundamental loneliness that stemmed from growing up without stable relationships. Her admission that she'd never experienced the kind of partnership Lukas described having with Elena was delivered without self-pity, but with a wistfulness that made his heart ache for her. Their connection deepened further when Victoria suggested a video call with Tyler that extended far beyond polite small talk. She spent nearly an hour asking about his artwork, listening patiently as he explained his creative process and showed off his favorite drawings. Tyler responded to her attention with enthusiasm, clearly enjoying having another adult take his artistic ambitions seriously. When the call ended, Tyler announced that Miss Victoria was, quote, really nice and super smart, and asked if she might visit them sometime when Daddy's work was finished. The innocence of Tyler's question highlighted the complexity of their situation. What had begun as a straightforward protection assignment was evolving into something neither Lukas nor Victoria had anticipated. They were both cautious people, shaped by loss and responsibility in ways that made emotional risk feel dangerous. Yet the connection between them was undeniable, built on mutual respect, shared values, and growing affection that threatened to complicate everything they thought they understood about their respective roles. As their third week at the safe house began, the quantum encryption project was nearing completion, and Victoria's security situation appeared stable. The initial threats seemed to have diminished, with no further attempts on her life or evidence of continued surveillance. Marcus was already discussing transition plans that would return Victoria to her normal routine while maintaining appropriate security protocols. The assignment was succeeding by every professional measure, but both Lukas and Victoria were beginning to realize that their greatest challenge might not be external enemies, but the feelings developing between them that defied every boundary they'd carefully constructed around their hearts. The encrypted phone buzzed at 3 in the morning, jolting Lukas from the light sleep that had become his norm during protection details. The caller ID showed Marcus Webb's emergency line, but the voice that greeted him wasn't his former commanding officer's familiar growl. Instead, a digitally altered voice spoke with mechanical precision that made his blood freeze. "Your son draws beautiful pictures, Sergeant Chen, especially the one of the dragon-breathing rainbow fire you mentioned to Miss Hayes. Tyler showed it to Maria Santos yesterday after school. Such talented children, both of them. It would be unfortunate if something happened to interrupt their artistic development." The line went dead before Lukas could respond, leaving him staring at the phone with mounting horror. They had Tyler, somehow, despite all his precautions, despite Mrs. Rodriguez's vigilant care and the security measures he'd put in place. Someone had gotten close enough to his son to photograph his artwork and threaten his safety. The professional detachment that had sustained him through combat deployments crumbled instantly, replaced by the primal terror of a parent whose child was in danger. Victoria appeared in the doorway, alerted by his sudden movement. She took one look at his expression and knew something catastrophic had occurred. "What happened?" she asked. But Lukas was already moving, grabbing his weapon and tactical gear with the efficiency of years of training. The safe house that had felt secure moments earlier now seemed like a trap, every shadow potentially concealing an enemy who knew exactly how to destroy him. "They have my son," he said, his voice hollow with shock. "Or they're close enough to take him." The call. They knew about Tyler's drawing, about Maria. Details only someone watching them closely would know. His hands shook as he loaded ammunition, muscle memory functioning, while his mind reeled with implications he couldn't bear to consider. 8 years old. Tyler was 8 years old, and someone was using him as leverage against his father. Victoria's face went pale, but her response was immediate and decisive. "We get him, right now. Whatever resources you need, whatever it takes." She was already reaching for her laptop, fingers flying over the keyboard as she accessed systems that could track phone calls and coordinate emergency responses. But Lukas was shaking his head, the tactical situation crystallizing in his mind with devastating clarity. "It's not that simple. This isn't random. Someone with serious resources has been watching us, planning this. They knew exactly what would break me, exactly how to make me choose between protecting you and saving my son." He looked at her with anguished eyes. "There's no choice, Victoria. I have to go to him." The phone buzzed again. This time it was Marcus's actual voice. But the words he spoke shattered what remained of Lukas's trust in everything he'd believed about their situation. "Lukas, I need you to listen carefully. The extraction team is already in position around your son's location. He's safe for now, but his continued safety depends on your cooperation." "Marcus, what the hell is going on?" Lukas demanded, But even as he spoke, pieces of a horrifying puzzle were falling into place. Marcus had recommended this assignment. Marcus had chosen the safe house location. Marcus had access to all their communication protocols and security arrangements. I'm sorry, brother. I truly am. But the quantum encryption technology Victoria's developed, it can't be allowed to reach the Pentagon. There are larger forces at play here. Geopolitical considerations that go far beyond one woman's revolutionary breakthrough. Marcus's voice carried genuine regret, but also unwavering conviction. Victoria Hayes has created something that could destabilize the entire global intelligence network. My employers can't permit that technology to exist. Victoria had gone deathly still, her laptop forgotten as the full scope of the betrayal became clear. The man who'd been coordinating her protection had been orchestrating her destruction from the beginning. Every security protocol, every safe house location, every detail of their daily routines had been fed to the very people trying to kill her. She'd been a mouse in a maze, believing she was being protected while actually being herded toward slaughter. "Your employers?" Lukas repeated, though he already suspected the answer. Marcus had left the military years ago, but his connections to intelligence agencies had never been severed. The private security company was a front, a way to maintain plausible deniability while executing operations that official government agencies couldn't openly acknowledge. The technology she's developed would render every existing surveillance system obsolete overnight, Marcus continued. Authoritarian governments, terrorist organizations, criminal networks, they'd all gain access to truly untraceable communications. The global balance of power would shift in ways that could destabilize democracies worldwide. Sometimes preventing catastrophe requires making impossible choices. Victoria found her voice, cold fury replacing the shock that had initially paralyzed her. "You're wrong about the technology. The quantum encryption system I've developed includes backdoor access for legitimate law enforcement and intelligence agencies. It's designed to protect civilian communications while maintaining necessary security oversight. But you never bothered to ask, did you? You just assumed I was creating something to help criminals and terrorists." The revelation hung in the air like a physical presence. Marcus had orchestrated an elaborate assassination plot based on incomplete intelligence, condemning Victoria to death for a crime she hadn't committed. The quantum system wasn't a tool for criminals to evade justice, but a sophisticated solution that would protect innocent people while preserving law enforcement capabilities. "That's not what our intelligence indicated," Marcus said. But his confidence had wavered. "The reports we received suggested unbreakable encryption without any government access." "Your intelligence was wrong," Victoria replied with icy precision. "Deliberately wrong, I suspect. Someone wanted you to believe I was creating a tool for criminals because they have their own agenda. They've manipulated you into becoming their weapon while convincing you that you're protecting national security." Lukas felt the foundations of his worldview crumbling as the true dimensions of the conspiracy became apparent. Marcus wasn't just a betrayer. He was a puppet being manipulated by forces that remained hidden. Someone with access to classified intelligence reports had deliberately provided false information, knowing that Marcus's patriotic instincts would compel him to act against Victoria. The real enemy remained invisible, using Marcus's security company as a disposable tool while maintaining their own anonymity. "It doesn't matter now," Marcus said, his voice hardening as he retreated into operational necessity. "The situation has evolved beyond the original intelligence. Your son's safety depends on your cooperation, Lukas. Bring Victoria to the coordinates I'm sending to your phone. Come alone, no weapons, no backup. If you comply, Tyler will be released unharmed and given a new identity and witness protection. If you refuse, or if you attempt any tactical intervention, my team has orders to eliminate all potential complications." The implicit threat was unmistakable. Tyler would die if Lukas didn't deliver Victoria for execution. His son's life hung in the balance, dependent on betraying a woman he'd come to care about deeply, a woman whose only crime was being too intelligent for her own safety. The impossible choice Marcus had engineered was designed to destroy him emotionally, regardless of which option he selected. Victoria reached out and took his hand, her touch grounding him in the midst of his spiraling panic. "I won't let you sacrifice Tyler for me," she said quietly. "Take me to Marcus. Your son comes first, always. I understand that, and I don't blame you for choosing him. Her acceptance of his impossible situation somehow made it worse. Victoria was prepared to die to save a child she'd only spoken to through video calls, displaying a selflessness that made his betrayal feel like moral cowardice, even as paternal instinct demanded he protect Tyler above all else. She was offering to pay with her life for his son's safety, and the knowledge that he might accept that trade filled him with self-loathing. "There has to be another way," he said desperately, but even as he spoke, tactical reality was asserting itself. Marcus had planned this operation with military precision, accounting for Lukas's training and emotional vulnerabilities. Tyler was leverage that couldn't be countered through conventional means, and any attempt at rescue would likely result in his son's death. The phone buzzed with coordinates and a timeline. 2 hours to reach the designated location, a remote warehouse district where Marcus's team would be waiting with overwhelming tactical advantage. Victoria gathered the quantum encryption files, her life's work that had become her death sentence, while Lukas checked his weapons with hands that shook with suppressed fury and helpless rage. As they prepared to leave the safe house that had become a trap, Victoria paused at the kitchen table where she'd spent countless hours developing the technology that was now condemning her. "Promise me something," she said to Lukas. "If I don't survive this, make sure the real specifications reach the right people. The backdoor access protocols, the law enforcement compatibility features, everything that proves the system was designed to help, not harm." She handed him an encrypted drive containing the complete technical documentation. "Tyler deserves a father who can live with his choices. Don't let my death be meaningless. Make sure the truth comes out, even if it takes years." Lukas took the drive, knowing he was accepting responsibility that extended far beyond this single night. Victoria was entrusting him with her legacy, her life's work, and the proof that would eventually expose the conspiracy that had led to her murder. The weight of that trust settled on his shoulders like lead, another burden to carry alongside the guilt of trading her life for his son's safety. As they walked toward the car that would take them to Marcus's killing ground, both of them understood that their connection, which had grown from professional duty into something approaching love, was about to be severed by forces beyond their control. The conspiracy that had manipulated Marcus into betraying them was about to claim Victoria's life and destroy Lukas's faith in everything he'd once believed about honor, duty, and the moral clarity of protecting innocent people from those who would do them harm. The warehouse district stretched before them in the pre-dawn darkness, a maze of industrial buildings and empty parking lots that would have been perfect for an ambush if Lukas had known exactly what Marcus was planning. 20 minutes before the deadline, he pulled the car into an alley 3 blocks from the designated meeting point and turned to Victoria with grim determination etched across his features. "I can't do it," he said quietly. "I can't deliver you to Marcus knowing what he intends. There has to be another way to save Tyler without sacrificing you." Victoria studied his profile in the dim light filtering through the windshield. "Your son's life is worth more than mine, Lukas. You have a responsibility to him that transcends any obligation to me. I've made peace with that reality." "No," Lukas replied with sudden fierceness. "Tyler would never forgive me if he knew I traded someone's life for his safety." Elena raised him to believe that protecting innocent people was sacred, that doing the right thing mattered more than personal cost. If I betray those values to save him, I destroy everything she tried to teach him about being a good man. The weight of that realization settled between them like a physical presence. Lukas had spent 2 years trying to honor Elena's memory by raising Tyler according to her principles, but now those same principles demanded he risk his son's life rather than compromise his moral integrity. It was an impossible paradox that threatened to tear him apart, but accepting it was the only path forward that preserved his soul. Victoria reached into her laptop bag and withdrew a second encrypted drive, identical to the one she'd given him earlier. "I've been working on contingency plans since the moment those documents scattered across the conference room floor," she said. "This contains a complete copy of the quantum encryption specifications, but with a crucial modification." Lukas took the drive, feeling its slight weight with confusion. "What kind of modification?" "A kill switch," Victoria explained with the calm precision of someone who'd thought through every angle. "If this version of the technology is implemented, it will appear to function normally for approximately 72 hours before suffering catastrophic system failure." Anyone who steals it and attempts to use it for malicious purposes will find themselves with worthless code that damages their existing infrastructure. The elegance of her solution struck him immediately. Victoria had created a perfect trap, a piece of bait that would expose her enemies while protecting the legitimate technology from theft or misuse. "You've been planning to use yourself as bait," he realized. "All along, you've known someone would eventually try to steal the technology. The quantum encryption system is too valuable for certain parties to ignore," she confirmed. "Government agencies, criminal organizations, foreign intelligence services. They all have reasons to want exclusive access. I knew eventually someone would make a move, so I prepared multiple versions of the technology with different capabilities and safeguards." Lukas felt a spark of hope igniting in his chest. So if Marcus gets this version instead of the real specifications, his employers will implement worthless code that exposes their operations while leaving your legitimate research intact. Exactly, but there's more. Victoria pulled out her phone and showed him a complex tracking application. Every drive is embedded with quantum-encrypted GPS technology that reports its location and usage patterns to a secure server. Once Marcus's people attempt to analyze the stolen specifications, I'll know exactly who they are and where they're operating from. The scope of her preparation was staggering. Victoria hadn't just created revolutionary encryption technology. She'd engineered an elaborate counterintelligence operation designed to identify and neutralize anyone who tried to steal her work. She'd been playing chess while her enemies thought they were playing checkers, thinking several moves ahead of every possible threat. "Why didn't you tell me about this earlier?" Lukas asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Because you needed to believe the drive contained the real technology for your emotional responses to remain authentic," Victoria replied with gentle understanding. "Marcus has been watching us closely enough to detect deception. If you'd known this was a trap, he might have sensed something was wrong and adjusted his plans accordingly." Lukas absorbed the implications of her strategy, recognizing both its brilliance and its inherent risks. "What about Tyler? Even if we expose Marcus's employers, he still has my son. The immediate threat doesn't disappear just because we're laying a trap." Victoria's expression grew determined. "I've been monitoring Marcus's communications since I discovered the betrayal. His team isn't holding Tyler directly. They've contracted with a local criminal organization to provide leverage while maintaining plausible deniability. Marcus gave them Tyler's location and schedule, but he doesn't control them directly. The distinction was crucial. If Marcus's team had Tyler, any rescue attempt would have to account for military-trained operators with sophisticated equipment and tactical discipline. But if the actual kidnapping had been outsourced to local criminals, different rules applied. Criminal organizations prioritized profit over ideology, making them potentially vulnerable to negotiation or misdirection. "I need to contact someone I trust completely," Lukas said, his mind already working through possibilities. "Sarah Bennett, my former squad leader. She's working private security in Sacramento now, completely independent from Marcus's network. If anyone can coordinate a rescue operation without alerting Marcus, it's her." Victoria nodded approvingly. "While you arrange that, I'll prepare the final elements of the trap. Marcus expects us to arrive defeated and desperate, ready to surrender without resistance. We'll give him exactly what he's expecting, right up until the moment we spring our own surprise." The next hour passed in intense preparation. Lukas contacted Sarah Bennett through encrypted channels, providing her with Tyler's location and the intelligence Victoria had gathered about his captors. Sarah's response was immediate and reassuring. She had assets in the area who could provide surveillance and tactical support, and she was already coordinating with local law enforcement contacts who could ensure Tyler's safety without alerting Marcus's network. Meanwhile, Victoria finalized the preparation of her technological trap. The false specifications were indistinguishable from the genuine article to casual observation, but embedded within the code were tracking protocols and systematic flaws that would reveal themselves only after implementation. Anyone who stole and deployed the technology would find themselves broadcasting their location and operational methods to Victoria's monitoring systems while simultaneously degrading their own cybersecurity infrastructure. "There's something else you need to know," Victoria said as they prepared for their confrontation with Marcus. "The false intelligence he received about my technology, the reports that convinced him I was creating tools for criminals and terrorists, They didn't come from legitimate government sources. Lukas looked up from checking his concealed weapons, sensing another layer of revelation approaching. What do you mean? I've been analyzing the metadata from communications Marcus received about the quantum encryption project. The intelligence reports were generated by a private company called Meridian Solutions, a defense contracting firm that specializes in cybersecurity and surveillance technologies. They're not government agents acting from patriotic motives. They're corporate competitors trying to eliminate my company so they can dominate the quantum encryption market themselves. The final piece of the conspiracy clicked into place with devastating clarity. Marcus hadn't been manipulated by shadowy government agencies protecting national security. He'd been used by a rival corporation that wanted to steal Victoria's technology while eliminating her as a competitor. His patriotic instincts had been weaponized by people whose only loyalty was to profit margins and market dominance. Meridian Solutions has government contracts worth billions of dollars, Victoria continued. If my quantum encryption system reaches the market, it would render their existing products obsolete overnight. They're not trying to prevent the technology from being used, they're trying to acquire it exclusively, while eliminating anyone who could replicate or improve it. Lukas felt a cold fury building in his chest. Marcus had been willing to sacrifice Tyler's father and condemn an innocent woman to death, not to protect national security, but to serve corporate interests that cared nothing for the lives they destroyed in pursuit of profit. The betrayal went beyond personal treachery into something far more cynical and calculating. Sarah just confirmed Tyler's location, Lukas said, checking his phone. Her team has visual confirmation that he's safe, and they're prepared to extract him the moment we give the signal. The kidnappers are small-time operators, more concerned about payment than violence. They'll abandon their position as soon as they realize law enforcement is closing in. Victoria smiled with genuine relief. Then we have all the pieces in place. Marcus gets his fake technology. We identify everyone involved in the conspiracy. Tyler gets rescued, and the legitimate quantum encryption system remains secure for its intended purpose. The plan was elegant in its simplicity, but both of them understood the personal cost it would require. Lukas would have to confront Marcus knowing that their friendship had been poisoned by manipulation and greed. Victoria would have to face the people who tried to murder her while maintaining the deception that would expose their true agenda. Neither task would be easy, but both were necessary for justice to prevail. As they drove toward the warehouse district, Lukas reached over and took Victoria's hand. After this is over, after Tyler is safe and the conspiracy is exposed, I want you to know that what's developed between us wasn't part of any protection detail or professional obligation. You matter to me as a person, not just as someone I was assigned to keep safe. Victoria squeezed his hand, her eyes bright with tears she refused to shed. You and Tyler have given me something I never thought I'd find. A sense of belonging, of being valued for who I am rather than what I can produce. Whatever happens in that warehouse, I want you to know that these weeks with you have been the happiest of my adult life. The warehouse loomed ahead of them, dark and forbidding against the lightning sky. Inside, Marcus waited with his team and the corporate representatives the technology that had nearly cost her life was now saving others, validating every sacrifice she'd made during its development. Miss Victoria, look what I drew, Tyler called out, holding up a picture of 3 figures standing together under a bright sun. That's you, me, and Daddy. We're a family now, right? Victoria knelt to Tyler's level, examining his artwork with the serious attention it deserved. That's the most beautiful family portrait I've ever seen, she said, her voice thick with emotion. The child who'd lost his mother and the woman who'd grown up without parents had found something precious together, a connection that transcended blood and circumstance. Lukas watched them interact with a contentment he'd never expected to feel again. The assignment that had begun with protecting Victoria from assassination had evolved into something far more valuable. They'd protected each other from loneliness, built trust from shared danger, and created a family from the ashes of betrayal and loss. Marcus remained in federal custody, cooperating with investigators in exchange for a reduced sentence. His last message to Lukas had been a simple apology, acknowledgement of the friendship he'd destroyed and the innocence he'd threatened. Some betrayals could be forgiven, but the trust they'd shared would never be restored. As evening approached and Tyler's energy finally began to fade, The three of them walked toward the parking lot where Lukas's civilian car waited. No armored vehicles, no tactical escorts, just a normal family heading home after a normal day. The quantum encryption files were secure, the conspiracy was exposed, and Tyler's laughter filled the air with promise of countless ordinary miracles yet to come. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.